Thank you for choosing one of our products. Your Nitro Monster Truck is a high-performance, radio-controlled scale model. Assemble it yourself, part by part, and enjoy driving it over all kinds of terrain. Cross-country quad, scale 1/10, four-wheel drive, powerful petrol engine. With your Nitro Monster Truck, you can drive over any kind of surface and clear the most difficult of obstacles. A truly amazing driving experience. The Nitro Monster Truck is a faithful reproduction of the well-known American monster trucks that usually compete against each other in jumping over rows of cars. Huge vehicles with enormous tires, high-tech suspension, and ultra-powerful engines. These exceptionally powerful giants can drive straight over any obstacle that stands in their path. Thanks to the superior quality of the radio-controlled Nitro Monster Truck, you too can enjoy many hours driving your own very special vehicle over all kinds of terrain. With the aid of this videotape and the component assembly diagrams provided, assembling the radio-controlled Nitro Monster Truck is easy and fun. Simply follow the technical step-by-step instructions given for each component. Clear and exceptionally detailed illustrations and instructions. Very high quality and high-tech mechanical components. Extremely robust. Also included, a powerful 2.5cc internal combustion engine fitted with a silencer. Start up your Nitro Monster Truck and dare to drive over the trickiest terrain you can find. All types of on- and off-road surfaces, even sand. Nothing can stand in your way. Just open the throttle and accelerate over the toughest of obstacles in amazing leaps. Nothing is too difficult for your Nitro Monster Truck. Assembly tools and equipment. Latex gloves, safety goggles, piece of cloth or paper, felt tip pen, brush, 2 Phillips screwdrivers, 1 medium and 1 small, pair of long-nosed pliers with, if possible, an inside cutting edge, pair of cutters, 1 flat spanner and 1 pipe spanner, Allen key, cyanoacrylate adhesive for fixing tires to wheel rims, sandpaper. Fitting the wheels. Carefully smooth rubber tire and wheel rim surfaces using the sandpaper. Clean all parts with a brush to eliminate all traces of dust. Insert foam insert into the tire and fit wheel rim. Insert tire rims into the wheel rim grooves. Use the felt tip pen and mark adhesive points around the rim using the ribs as a guide. Put on gloves and safety goggles and apply a drop of cyanoacrylate adhesive at each of the marked points. Differential and rear axle assembly. After laying out all the differential components in front of you, assemble the rings and planetary gears and fit them to the crown wheel. Assemble the drive shaft bearing and universal joint. Repeat the operation with the casing and grease the axle drive gearing and the casing itself. Fit the 2 planetary gears and axles. Apply more grease, ensuring that the gearing is almost entirely covered. After fitting the joint to the crown wheel, fit the wheel into the casing and tighten using a small Phillips screwdriver. We shall now see how to assemble the drive pinion. Fit the ring and 2 bearings. Place the bearings in the 2 lower axle housings. Fit the drive shaft nut and tighten the hexagonal socket. Place the differential in the lower axle casing, taking care to ensure the coupling is working correctly. And then fit the upper part of the casing. Turn the differential assembly, insert the countersunk screw, and tighten using the medium-sized Phillips screwdriver. Do not over-tighten, as this will distort the components. Let us now look at the suspension, starting with the rear lower arms. Insert the height adjustment screw on each arm. Fit the ring and shaft, and tighten with the screwdriver. Check the arm moves freely. Tighten the connecting screws between the upper arms and fork joints. Place the arms on the upper shaft casing and fit the shaft. Tighten it with a screwdriver. Check the arms move freely. Turn the rear axle assembly over, which for the moment is incomplete, placing the rear section of the chassis uppermost. Insert the 4 securing screws. We shall now complete the assembly of this part of the vehicle by fitting the drive shafts and tie rods. Insert the bearings first on the shaft and then on the tie rod. Start with the outer bearings and then move to the inner. Put a small amount of grease in the outer hole into which the steel shaft is to be inserted. Fit the hexagonal drive end to the steel shaft. Fit the 2 tie rods into the arm housing and insert the shaft, fitting the rod end into the upper arm. Fit the 2 differential drive shafts and wheel axle nuts to the drive shafts. Replace the triangular arm over the upper hole and insert the securing screw. Assembly of shock absorbers. We shall begin with the piston. Fit the first circlip to the damper rod, then the second to the piston itself. Secure the clips using the pliers. Now take the body of the shock absorber and insert 2 O-rings and a plastic bush. Finger tighten the plug and insert the damper rod and piston. Hand tighten the cap, securing the damper rod close to the thread using the cutting edge of the pliers. Then insert the diaphragm with the screw on the outside and the small plug on the inside. Secure it with the small countersunk screw. Fill with silicone oil up to 1 mm from the rim. Do not tighten the screw plug completely. Then fit the spring support over the cap, compress the damper, and finally tighten the plug as much as possible. Withdraw the spring support, fit the double diameter bush which will serve as a guide for the spring, then the spring itself. Finally, replace the spring support over the cap. Now continue by assembling the central section, which has 2 transmission drive shaft support mountings. Insert one of the drive shaft bearings into the first bearing support housing and secure it using the washer screws. Insert the other drive shaft bearing into the second support. Fit the drive shaft to the crown, securing it with the 3 countersunk screws. Place the 2 pads over the screws and secure them to the support. The brake disc will be fitted between the 2 pads later. Insert the hexagonal socket headless set screw, diameter 3, into the brake cam. Fit the cam into the support housing opening and secure it with the plastic plate, using 2 screws to lock it in place. Take the central axle and insert the small drive pin and the square bush for the brake disc. Fit the crown together with its drive shaft to the central shaft using its hexagonal socket screw. Fit the entire assembly to the brake disc, which should now have been placed between the pads. Fit the outer universal joint to the central shaft using the hexagonal socket headless set screw. Then fit the second support and universal joint. Take the entire central assembly and fit it to the chassis, inserting the drive shaft between the rear axle and the central assembly. Then secure the central assembly using the 4 bolts. Assembly of front axle. The assembly of the front axle is identical to the rear axle. Ensure that the arms are able to move freely and correctly. Complete the assembly of the front axle by fitting the steering stubs. Take the complete universal joint assembly and fit the self-lubricating axle bush to the wheel axle, then fit it into the steering stubs. Next, insert the small drive pin, then the drive hexagon. Insert the screw and secure the ball joint to the stub, using the cutting edge of the pliers to grasp it. Then fit the ball joints to each of the arms. Place the steering stubs between the arms and join the suspensions using the 2 screws provided. Now let us turn our attention to the steering control system. This consists of a twin safety servo and steering mechanism and is designed to protect the servo. Fit the safety servo and steering mechanism to their respective axles. Link them with the U-shaped tie rod using screws to secure it. Connect the ball joints to the arms. Secure the 2 small steering columns to the chassis with screws, and then fit the safety servo and steering mechanism you've just assembled. Now complete the front section by securing the front axle and front bumper to the chassis. Connect the fork joints using the long hexagonal socket screws to form the tie rods. Then fit them to the safety servo and steering mechanism ball joints. Next, fit the bumper using a 4-way socket spanner. Fit the front axle by inserting the central universal joint between the central assembly and the front axle. Secure the entire assembly using the screws provided for this purpose. Now fit the steering tie rods to the tie rod ball joints. Then continue with the central frame assembly, fitting the mounting plate to the rear axle assembly. Take the rear central frame assembly plate to which you've already connected the track rod using the 2 fork joints. Secure the rod with screws. Then take the front plate, secure the fork joints to the ball joint, and fit the plate to the assembly, safety servo, and steering mechanism. Tighten the various components. Assembly of 2.5cc motor. Begin assembling the motor by inserting the crankshaft into the 2 crankcase bearing housings. First, fit the cylinder head to the fin cylinder and insert the connecting rod into the piston. Insert the smallest eye of the connecting rod and secure the entire assembly to the appropriate shaft. Continue by attaching the connecting rod and piston to the crank pin by rotating the casing. Also, insert the cylinder sleeve and fit the cylinder head after positioning the bolts and the cylinder head gasket. Use an Allen key to tighten the bolts. We shall now turn our attention to the rear of the engine. Insert the small end bush and unidirectional bearing into the crankcase housing. Insert the inertia drive and position the rear bush to point towards the left side of the engine. Secure it using 4 hexagonal socket bolts. Take the drive shaft, fit it correctly to the bush and secure it using the 4 bolts. Now for the carburetor. Insert the carburetor, securing the bolt and tightening the nut. Finally, we turn to the front part of the engine, beginning with the flywheel. Tighten the adapter screw to secure the wheel. Use adjustable pliers and an 8mm pipe spanner. Fit the feed heads to the 2 small columns and then to the clutch spring. Now fit the washer, bell bearing and bell. Next, fit the small 5mm interior diameter washer and secure the entire assembly with a circlip. Finally, screw the spark plug into the engine cylinder head and tighten with a size 8 spanner. Once the engine is assembled, attach it to the support mounting and then secure it to the model's chassis. Attach the exhaust pipe manifold to the engine exhaust outlet, not forgetting to secure the joint with the 2 long bolts. The engine is now ready for use, but first the silencer mounting pin must be fitted to the front section. Place the engine over the 4 oval-shaped holes used to adjust its position. Then secure the engine using the 4 screws and washers. Attach the silencer and its silicon joint by fitting it over the mounting pin and securing it with the hexagonal socket screw. You can now fit the fuel tank using the 2 corresponding screws and the O-rings. The silicon tubing should be cut into 2 pieces for connection to the carburetor and silencer. Connect the shortest section to the silencer and the longest to the carburetor. Radio control and startup kit. As we publish details about the various components, we will also offer a suitable kit for the radio control and startup of your scale model. These accessories will be sold separately at attractive prices. Radio receiver unit. Fit the switch and secure it next to the on-off tab. Attach the receiver box to the chassis using the 4 screws supplied for that purpose. Fit the servos and place the receiver unit in its box after connecting the servos and the wire between the switch and the batteries. Fit the lid over the box, taking care to pass the antenna through the protective sleeve provided. Don't forget to tie a fixing knot. Next, fit the columns for securing the batteries to the chassis, and then place the batteries in the battery holder, taking care to protect them using adhesive ribbon, and attaching them to their support using adjustable mounting clips. You can now switch on the radio control unit and receiver to check the servos are working correctly. Now fit the accelerator rod metal guide to the accelerator lever and secure it with a circlip. Connect the brake and accelerator rods to their respective connecting rods. Insert the Z end of the accelerator rod into the small carburetor lever. Place the brake lever in the brake cam and connect the brake compensator to the servo. Secure the brake lever to the cam using the hexagonal socket screw. After screwing the fork end to the steering rod, insert the Z end into the servo lever and place the fork end in the safety servo ball joint with the aid of pliers. Finally, check the accelerator and steering mechanism is working correctly. Securing shock absorbers to the suspension. Begin by inserting the ball joints in the fork ends and attaching them to the suspension. The fork end section is attached to the lower arms, and the opposite end is attached to the upper support using a self-locking nut. Do not tighten the nut completely. Leave at least half a turn. Attaching wheels to the suspension. Fit the wheels to their hexagon drive shaft ends, insert the washers, and tighten the nuts. Fitting filters. Cut the fuel supply line and fit the fuel filter. Fit an air filter to the carburetor and secure it with an adjustable clip. Bodywork. Enhance the appearance of your scale model's bodywork by sticking special Nitro Monster Truck self-adhesive logos onto it. Starting the engine. Before starting the engine, fill the fuel tank with a mixture and tighten the mechanical idle adjustment screw to increase engine idle speed. Open the carburetor manually with the radio switched off using the lever. Blow into the pressurization pipe connected to the fuel tank to ensure the mixture reaches the engine. You can now start the engine. Fit the handle to the cord and pull firmly on the starter several times. Attach the decorated Nitro Monster Truck bodywork to the 4 mounting points and secure using the 4 clips. Your Nitro Monster Truck is now ready for its first road test.